She never imagined that a simple walk to school could become a fight for her dignity. No crime. No wrongdoing. Just a young girl with dreams, stepping into a world that didn't see her as equal. The whispers started first, then the stares, then the walls that seemed to close in tighter with every step. What happened next wasn't just cruel, it was a reminder of how deep injustice can run. But in that moment of pain, something powerful was born. The question is, how much can one heart endure before it breaks? It was supposed to be just another school morning. Aaliyah, only 16, tied her hair back, slung her worn-out backpack over her shoulder, and kissed her mother goodbye before stepping out the door. The air was cool, the streets alive with the usual sounds of neighbors heading to work, children rushing for buses, and shopkeepers lifting shutters. To her, this was routine, a daily walk to a place where she hoped her dreams would grow. She wanted to be a writer, filling her notebook with stories about heroes, about hope, about worlds kinder than the one she lived in. But beneath her quiet determination, there was always a weight. She felt it in the way people sometimes looked at her, in the way teachers hesitated before calling her name, as if her presence carried more questions than answers. Still, she kept her head high. She told herself that strength meant moving forward, no matter who tried to slow her down. On that morning, though, something felt different. The usual walk seemed heavier, like the world was watching closer than before. A group of boys leaned against the corner store, their voices low, their eyes sharp. She kept walking. The sound of her footsteps against the pavement seemed louder than usual, echoing in her chest. She didn't know it yet, but every step she took was carrying her toward a moment she could never forget, a moment that would test not only her courage but the strength of everyone who believed in justice. Aaliyah quickened her pace, clutching the straps of her backpack tighter. The laughter from the boys at the corner grew louder, sharper, laced with something that wasn't just amusement, it was aimed at her. Their words cut through the morning air like knives. "Why don't you go back where you came from?" One sneered, his voice dripping with mockery. Another echoed, louder, making sure everyone nearby could hear. Heads turned, eyes lingered. Suddenly, the street that had always felt ordinary seemed hostile, every glance a reminder that she didn't belong. She kept walking, her heart pounding, but their footsteps followed. Not close enough to touch her, yet close enough that she couldn't escape the echo of their insults. She wanted to scream, to disappear, but instead, she forced herself to move forward. Her mother's words echoed in her mind, "Don't give them the power to see you break." But how do you not break when the world is breaking you? At the school gates, she thought she had escaped. She slipped inside, hoping the crowd of students would shield her. But safety was an illusion. Whispers spread quickly, hallway chatter turning sharp as she walked by. Books slammed shut, laughter erupted, and soon she realized the taunts hadn't been left outside, they had followed her in. A note fluttered from her locker when she opened it, a crude drawing, ugly words scrawled in ink, the kind of message meant to cut deeper than any fist. Her hands trembled, but she tucked the note away, pretending not to care. Pretending was survival. Still, each step down the hallway felt heavier, like she was carrying the weight of every cruel stare, every whispered word. The day dragged on, every class another test of endurance. Teachers avoided the tension, pretending not to hear the muttered slurs or see the glares. And in that silence, she felt the deepest wound of all, the realization that those who could protect her chose not to. By the final bell, her hope of blending in had vanished. She walked home with her head down, praying for the day to end, praying no one else would notice her. But prayers don't always silence cruelty. Halfway down the block, she heard it again, footsteps. Deliberate. Too close. She turned, and there they were, the same boys from the morning, shadows stretching long across the pavement. One of them grinned, tossing a stone into the air, catching it with a snap. The sound echoed, sharp, like a warning. Her chest tightened. Her legs wanted to run, but fear rooted her in place. She clutched her backpack as if it could shield her, her pulse hammering in her ears. The street was suddenly empty, no neighbors, no witnesses. Just her, and them. And in that moment, she realized the truth. This wasn't about words anymore. This was about power. About fear. About breaking her spirit where no one could see. What happened next would mark her forever. Aaliyah's breath caught in her throat as the boys closed in. The laughter was gone now, replaced with something colder, something dangerous. One of them stepped forward, his shadow stretching across her shoes. "Thought you could ignore us?" he sneered, shoving her shoulder. She stumbled back, her backpack slipping, notebooks scattering across the pavement. The pages fluttered like broken wings. She dropped to her knees, scrambling to gather them, but a foot came down hard on her notebook, grinding it into the dirt. Her stories, her dreams, smeared beneath the weight of cruelty. She looked up, her eyes stinging, only to find their faces twisted with satisfaction. They weren't just humiliating her. They wanted to erase her. The sting of another shove sent her crashing against the wall of a building. The brick scraped her arm, blood blooming in thin lines across her skin. Her pulse thundered, every instinct screaming to run, but there was nowhere to go. Empty street. Silent windows. No one coming. No one ever came. The leader leaned closer, his breath hot, his words colder than the morning air. You don't belong here. You never will. For a moment, time stopped. The weight of generations pressed down on her chest, every story her mother had told her about injustice suddenly alive in her veins. She wanted to scream, to fight, to prove them wrong, but fear held her still. And in that silence, their power seemed absolute. Then, the stone he'd been tossing all day slipped into his hand again. He raised it slowly, deliberately, as if savoring the fear in her eyes. Her world narrowed to that single movement, the stone hovering above, ready to fall. Would it land? Would anyone stop them? Or would this be the moment she learned, in the harshest way possible, that survival sometimes comes at the cost of silence? The stone never struck her. A voice from across the street, an older woman calling out, shattered the silence. The boys froze, exchanged uneasy glances, and scattered, their laughter fading into the distance. Aaliyah stood trembling, her knees weak, her notebook stained and torn. She gathered them slowly, her hands shaking, the sting of humiliation heavier than the scrape on her arm. On the surface, it seemed over. But deep inside, something had changed. That walk home was no longer routine. It was a reminder, etched into her memory, that safety could be stolen in seconds, that dignity could be crushed without consequence. She told no one at first, too afraid that speaking it aloud would make the pain heavier. Yet silence did not erase it. Every step she took afterward carried the echo of that day.
And Aaliyah's story is not hers alone. It is the story of countless voices silenced by fear, countless dreams stained by prejudice, countless children forced to grow up knowing the world weighs heavier on them than it should. Racism is not always loud, it hides in whispers, in stares, in the silence of those who choose not to intervene. And its scars last long after the moment has passed. She survived that day, but survival is not the same as freedom. The real question is, how many more Aaliyahs must endure before we decide enough is enough? So when you hear the whispers, when you see the injustice, will you turn away, or will you finally speak, so no one has to walk alone?